ॐ
ॐ
सदाशिवसमारम्भाम्
सदाशिवसमारम्भाम्
शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम्
शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम्
अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्ताम्
अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्ताम्
वन्दे
वन्दे
गुरुपरम्पराम्
गुरुपरम्पराम्
ॐ
ॐ सहना
भवतु
सहनौ
सहनो
भुनक्तु सह
भुनक्तु
वीर्यं
कर्मवै
करवावहै
तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै
तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु
ॐ शान्ति
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 शान्तिः
शान्तिः
Okay, so we were on the Bhashyam on Veda Pramanam, and we had completed the first two portions. There is a third topic which is called the Nisheda Vakya Pramanam. Right? So we established that Vedanta Vakyam is not Bhutartha a dependent Pramanam, but it is Swatantra Pramanam. Right? It is not Vedishesham. It is not to be part of a Vidhivakyam, of an instruction. Then now is the third topic, Nisheda Vakya Pramanam. So the Purvamimamsikas have said, if you remember, that a Veda Vakyam, a Shruti Vakyam, a instruction in the Shruti, is to be taken as Pramanam only when it prescribes karma. Right? So that is what was said by the Purva Mimamsika. So Shankaracharya gets up and says, but you are Vaidikas, right? And therefore you accept Nisheda Vakyam also as Pramana. What does Purva Mimamsika say? That only if only if a statement prescribes action, commandment is there for doing action, then only can it be taken as Pramana. But Shankaracharya says there are also statements which prohibit action, Nisheda Vakyam. And you people accept, you people meaning Purvamamsika, they accept these prohibitory statements also as Pramana. So he says, how do you reconcile? On one hand, you are saying that a statement is Pramanam only if it mandates karma. But a Nishada Vakyam doesn't mandate karma. It only prohibits karma. So that's a statement that Shankaracharya makes. Then in his Bhashyam, he does a discussion. How do these Nisheda Vakyams work? So remember, they are also mandates, they are also commandments, but they are prohibitive commandments. How do they work? That's a discussion. Okay, very important for us to understand. All these things we will never think of on our own. No, his question is when there is a prohibitory commandment, prohibitory injunction, does it function in the field of something which you like or in the field of something which you don't like? Like the Sanskrit words are Ishtha Vishayam, something which you desire, or Anishtha Vishayam, something which you do not desire. That's the prohibitive statement, do they function? And if they do function, in which of these fields do they function? What is the logic? Suppose it is Anishtha Vishayam. Anishtha Vishayam means something which I don't desire. When something is there which I don't desire, is there a Nishada Vakyam required?
No.
Right? Because you will not pursue that anyway. Right? For example, if you put your hand in fire, it'll get burnt. Right? We all know that. You will not go and put your hand in fire. So Shruti need not tell you, do not put your hand in the fire. Nishada Vakyam is not required. But if something you desire or at least you think you desire, people will definitely pursue it. See the logic. If there is something which you do not desire, Nishada Vakyam is not required. right? If there is something which you desire, and desire, remember, means Shruti accepts that it is okay, it's kamya karma. So if there is something which you desire, then anyway you will pursue it, and Nisheda Vakyam should not be there because it is desirable. So what exactly is the field of the function of Nisheda Vakyam? Do you get the subtlety? If something is there which is not desirable for you, you will anyway not pursue it. So the prohibition is not required. If something is desired for you, then Shruti says, okay, that is good for you, and therefore prohibition is not required. Then what is the field of operation of a Nisheda Vakyam? Because in both cases, we are saying if you desire it, there should be no prohibition. And if it is not good for you, is undesirable, there should be no prohibition. Can you think then what exactly is the field of prohibition? Because both the statements are absolutely valid. If something is desirable, that means Shruti accepts that it is a desirable goal. And therefore Shruti will not give prohibition. If something is not desirable, Shruti need not prohibit. Therefore, what is the function of prohibitory vakyam?
So that means it's
The
conditional.
thing which I desire myself, but it is not good for me. In that case, the
Mhm.
the other vacuum will.
Excellent. So, this Nisheda vakyam therefore functions, I mean, if you're, what you're saying is absolutely correct, Sudhir, but then we have to put that in the, what I call, shastric logic. So, this Nisheda vakyam, these prohibitory conditions, statements, they function where there is a special condition. What is a special condition? What is actually non-desirable is falsely taken as desirable. Does it make sense?
Absolutely.
Right.
Beautifully done.
Therefore, for example, drinking is not good for you. Right? It's a fact. But because of attachment to that particular activity, you think one drink is good for me, or I drown myself in drink because I'm not happy. So it's desirable for me. Therefore, Nisheda Vakyam is required to stop people from doing something which is actually undesirable, but where they have misunderstood it as being desirable. It's falsely taken as desirable. And therefore, Shankara says, therefore, Nisheda Vakyams function in a field because there is Bhranti, there is delusion. So when we listen to Nisheda Vakyam, when we listen to these prohibitory injunctions, what actually takes place? What actually takes place? The moment that we are all taking for granted that we are all astikas. So we accept Vedic statements as the truth. We always say that Veda never say something which is not good for me. Therefore, if I am smoking, I suppose I have thought that smoking is good for me, and therefore I am smoking. And then there is a prohibitory statement from the Veda, or in fact, you can take it from the doctor also, which says that this is not good for you. What happens then? Your understanding that smoking is good for you gets converted into understanding that smoking is not good for you. What does Nishida Vakyam therefore do? The moment Nishida Vakyam gives you the knowledge that what you think is good for you is not good for you, then that fallacious knowledge, Bhranti Jnanam, that goes away. So Nishida Vakyam reveals that something is bad. So Nishida Vakyam reveals that what I thought was Nishtham, good for me, is actually Anishtham. And therefore that delusion goes away. my activity also dies. I don't anymore pursue that activity. So what has happened? Jnana matrena, purely from knowledge. What is the knowledge? The knowledge given by the Nisheda Vakyam that this is actually a undesirable pursuit. So purely from that knowledge, karma is given up. Right? It doesn't, and when I say that given up, we have to understand carefully. Let us take the example of drinking again. Right? Shastra very clearly says you should not drink. Now, as supposing I was not familiar with that statement from Shastra. I used to drink, right? And then Shastra says, do not drink. And therefore, I wonder, why should I not drink? Because Shastra is telling me. So, Shastra must be having some reason. And therefore, I go to somebody knowledgeable, my guru maybe, or my doctor maybe, and say that Shastram tells me I should not drink. But I always thought drinking was good for me because I get a lot of joy out of it. So, what is the reason? So, the doctor explains that is not good for you because the following damages will occur. Because of that knowledge, what happens? I do not pursue that drinking habit anymore. So, the giving up of that drinking habit is not really an action. It's something which arises out of the knowledge that that particular drinking activity is not good for me. And therefore, I'm not giving up drinking. I'm no longer pursuing that activity. Karma is not being done. I will no longer go to drink. I will no longer go and do that action of drinking. Very subtle argument. Therefore, Shankara is saying that without prescribing any action, what has happened? They have said, do not drink. Negating something is not an action. It's not prescription action. But it is pramanam because you're obeying, you're understanding. And therefore, we can say that Nisheda Vakyam, prohibitive injunctions, they result in inaction, but they never actually suggest an action. Very important statement. Prohibitive statements, Nisheda Vakyams, the phalam is akarma, inaction. But Nisheda Vakyams themselves don't suggest do some action. In Sanskrit, this is called audasinyam, inaction. Take another example. Supposing there is a Vaidika. Vaidika means he takes Vedic statements as pramana. Now somebody is rude to him and he is contemplating, shall I go and beat him up? Right. In the meantime, he goes to his guru's classes and guru says, Hinsana Koryat. Do not commit violence. What is the result? The act of harming the other person, which he would otherwise have done, he does not do. And therefore, audasinyam is not a particular type of action. In fact, Shankara says, in his argument, Shankara says that audasinyam is not any type of action at all, but it is a swabhava, the natural condition of a person. Any action is always the result of some other, aspect of his life where he thinks I am not fulfilled, so I should do something, or where he thinks this is not good for me, therefore I should get rid of it. Pravritti and nivritti are not the natural conditions of a person. Audasinyam, inaction is. This is what Shankara says. Now we go back to the Purva Mimamsika. He says, no, you are wrong, Shankaracharya. Inaction is very much action. Then Shankara says, if you are saying that inaction and action are the same, then tell me what is the difference between Vidhi Vakyam and Nisheda Vakyam? Commandments for action and commandments prohibiting action, how are they different if you are saying that inaction and action are the same? So Mimamsika has no reply to that. Therefore Shankara says, Nisheda Vakyams do not command any action, are not commandments to do action, but nevertheless they are pramanam. Therefore, what is the conclusion? A Vedic statement is very much valid whether it prescribes an action or prohibits an action. And he says prescription of action, commandment of action, or prohibition of action has nothing to do with the validity of the pramana. This is Advaitin's view. Whereas the Purvamimamsika view is that a statement in the Veda is valid only when it prescribes or commands action. Right? Now, there is one criterion for validity. The Vakyam, the statement, this is the criterion for Pramanam. We already know that. What are the criteria? The statement should be anadhyata. It should be not saying something which is already known. The statement should say something which I do not know. Right? Fresh knowledge should be given. At the same time, it should not contradict knowledge from another Pramanam. Right? So, for example, if Shruti says fire is hot, is it a Pramanam?
No,
Why?
because we can experience it by touching with the sense.
So you already know through your sense organs that fire is hot. So you already have that knowledge. Therefore, Shruti did not tell you that fire is hot. So that statement is not Pramanam. On the other hand, if Shruti says fire is cold, that is not known to you. So is that a Pramanam then?
No,
No,
because
because
it's
it
not correct.
Come again?
It contradicts.
contradicts the knowledge of.
It contradicts the knowledge of sense organs. Therefore, these are the two conditions for a statement to be Pramana. It should give you fresh knowledge which you don't know already, and it should not contradict the knowledge of any other Pramanam. So, if these conditions are fulfilled, the Shruti Vakyam is Pramanam, irrespective of the fact whether the Vakyam is a commandment for karma or a prohibition for karma. Right? This is the argument that Shankara has used. Now, before going on to the next topic, let us summarize the whole discussion so far on Veda Pramana. So, all Veda Pramanams, all Veda Vakyams, which fulfill two conditions are Pramanam. What is that? They should not repeat any knowledge which you already have. Therefore, they should give you fresh knowledge. That is the first condition. And the second one condition is that they should not contradict any knowledge already available through any other Praman. This should be very clear. That is the only case in which the Vakyam will become Praman. Now, we also saw that all Veda Vakyams, Pramana Vakyams, can be classified into four categories. Vidhi Vakyani, statements of command. Nisheda Vakyani, statements of prohibition. Bhutartha Vakyams and Vedanta Vakyams. These are four categories. All these four, which four? Vidhi, Nisheda, Bhutartha and Vedanta. All these four categories, remember, they fulfill both the conditions of giving fresh knowledge and not contradicting knowledge already available through other pramanams. Right? Now, that is what is common to all the four vakyams. On the other hand, a statement of command, Vidhi Vakyam, is pramanam only if it is got prayojanam by itself. Right? So something which gives you ananda, for example, is useful. Okay. So Vidivakyam is pramanam only if prayojanam, usefulness, utility is there. Similarly, Nishedavakyam is also independently useful. When I say Vidivakyam is useful, I am saying Vidivakyam is independently a pramanam because it gives you ananda. Prayojanam is there. Similarly, Nishedavakyam, prohibitory statements are also useful, independently useful because they save you from sorrow. Right? He says, don't drink, it saves you from future sorrow. Then Vedanta Vakyams, these are also independently useful because it helps you for moksha. So there are three pramanams, Vidhi, Nisheda, Vedanta. They are independent pramanams because they don't depend upon any other, statement of karma to have a prayojanam. So these three vakyams are called Ananya Shesham, which means not dependent upon anything else. So independent statements. Whereas the fourth category, Bhutarthavadaha, we saw, is a pramanam, but it has to be connected to one of the other three, Vidhi, Nisheda or Vedanta, for it to have prayojanam. So what is the difference? Vidhi, Nisheda and Vedanta Vakyams are independently pramanam, useful, while Bhutarthavada is a pramanam, but is useful. It has utility only when connected to one of the other three, Vidhi, Nisheda or Vedanta. So such Bhutartha Vakyams, Bhutartha Vadaha, you will find these statements in both parts of the Veda, in Karma Kanda or in Jnana Kanda. Right? And they have to be connected. So in Jnana Kanda, they have to be connected to Mahavakyam. For example, there is a Srishti Vakyam. What is how Srishti happens, right? But the description is Pramanam. But they are Bhutarthavada. Supposing they are happening in Vedanta. They are Pramanam because they tell you something which you do not know. But they have no practical utility. Why? Until you connect them to the Mahavakyam. You have to connect that to Tatpadaha. So if the whole discussion on formation of Srishti, it's knowledge, statements of fact. But what is the utility until you connect it to Tatpada, Ishvara? What is utility? Ishvara is the creator of the Srishti. Then only becomes a part of the Mahavakyam. Therefore, you have to connect it to Tatpada. Right? Though this is a discussion as far as the utility of a Vakyam is concerned. But what about the commandments to do karma? So, Vidivakyams are commandments for karma. They become useful how? Through the performance of the karma. And therefore, there is a name, we use a particular technical name called Karya Param. Karya Param means such Vakyams require karma for the Vakyam to become useful. Okay. Let us take an example. You are hungry, right? You come and tell me, I am hungry. So I say, I put a plate of food on the table and I say, this is food. Now, this is food. Is it a statement of fact or is it a commandment for karma?
Statement of fact.
Is that statement of fact useful to you by itself?
Only if I eat. Only if I use.
It's a statement of fact. Is it useful to you by itself? Does it
No.
satisfy your hunger?
No.
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 And therefore you have to connect it to the next vakyam which I should be saying. What is the next vakyam?
Eat.
Whenever you
Have
hunger.
it.
Satisfy your hunger.
Eat the food,
Eat it.
right? So there are two
Mm.
vakyams. One is statement of fact, this is the food, and one is eat the food with statement of commandment. So unless that statement of fact gets connected to the statement of commandment, which is called vidisheshaha, it is part of that statement of vidhi, then only it becomes useful. Okay, therefore these are called karya param statements. What about nisheda vakyams? They do not prescribe action at all, and therefore they are called akarya param. Vidhi vakyams prescribing commandment or giving commandments for action are called karya param. Prohibitory vakyams not prescribing action, only prescribing withdrawal from action, actually, not to do the action. It's called akarya param. Still, it is pramanam. Then there is bhutartha vadaha, which is arthavada. It doesn't prescribe action, and therefore it is akarya param. Vedanta vakyams also are statements of fact. They do not prescribe action. Therefore, they are also akarya param. Okay, so I give you a summary. Now let's give one summary of this summary. Okay, so we'll make it very clear. To summarize the summary. Of the four pramana vakyams, what are the four? Vidhi, Nisheda, Vedanta,
Bhutartha.
and Bhutartha. Of these four pramana vakyams, three have prayojanam independently. While Bhutarthavada has a prayojanam only when it is connected to one of the other three. Therefore, three are a karya param and one of them is karya param. So with this, the discussion on Vedanta Pramanam is over. Now, I would suggest that you read it again. Shraddha ji has given a very nice commentary up to this date, so I'll request her to update it in the next few days. Now, the question is, why should Shankaracharya bring the topic, this particular topic here? So we would have forgotten the topic, right? This is the Vedanta, what do you call, Bhashyam gist, which we have talked about. But why was that Bhashyam brought here? What is the topic here? If anybody remembers. See, this is the problem with Brihadaranyaka. You don't remember anything after some time. What is the topic? The topic we were on is Hiranyagarbha Upasana, Prana Upasana. Right? And in this Prana Upasana, certain vibhutis, glories are being mentioned through a story. So when glories are mentioned in a story in the Veda, remember it's a Veda, so basically they are Vedic statements only. But when they are mentioned in the story, it is what Vakyam? It is Pramanam or Apramanam? There should be no confusion about that, right?
Pramana.
Why is it Pramanam?
Because they are Veda Vakya. I mean, it is
Because-
coming in the Shruti.
Because they are Veda Vakyam. So they are Pramanam. If you say they are Pramanam, then the discussion is over for you because then you are saying, I don't accept Veda. Right? So you are a Vedika, any statement in the Veda is Pramanam for you. So these stories where the Vibhutis are being mentioned for Hiranyagarbha, they are very much Pramanam, but they are Arthavada. Pramanam nevertheless, but Arthavada. In the context of the four statements that we have talked about, what are they? Bhutarthavada.
Both are the
Right. So, Bhutarthavada is to be accepted as Pramanam. And in the whole discussion, Shankaracharya was trying to tell us, even though it is Bhutarthavada, which is a statement which has no practical utility by itself, unless you connect it to a Vidivakyam, you have to accept it as Pramanam. It is not that it is not Pramanam. Right? So, the some people will say that it's, hypothetical story, it's imagination. The point is that Hiranyagarbha and Vibhuti may be imagination, but the Vakyam should be taken as Pramanam. Like number one, it is in the Veda, and appearing in the Veda, it has to fulfill those two conditions, which is what? It should not. What are the two conditions for Pramanam?
Contradict.
Fresh knowledge.
To
And
give
it
deep
should not
knowledge.
It should give fresh knowledge. It should
Mm.
not contradict. These are the two statements which two conditions were required. And Shankaracharya is going to show that these statements, they fulfill these conditions. Therefore, it is to establish this particular point that the whole Bhashya might come up. Okay. Now we go to the mantras. The story is in the mantras. So we'll just read quickly through and then I will explain. So please unmute yourself. द्वाः प्राजापत्याः. This is 131. Okay.
Yeah.
द्वयाः
Prajapatyah.
प्राजापत्याः.
Dvaya
द्वयाः प्राजापत्याः
Prajapatyah.
देवाश्चासुराश्च
देवाश्च सुराश्च
Suraschah.
ततः कानीयसा एव देवाः
ततः
Kaniyasa
कानीयसा
eva
एव
deva.
देवाः
जायसा असुरः ते एषु लोकेषु
जायसा
Asura
असुरः त
eva
एषु
lokesh.
लोकेषु
अस्पर्धन्त तेह देवा ऊचुः
Aspardhanta
अस्पर्धन्ते
teha deva
देह
uchu.
देवा उचुः
हन्तासुरान् यज्ञ उद्गीथेन अत्ययामेति
Asuran yajna udgitena
हन्तासुरान् यज्ञ उद्गीथेन अत्ययामेति
Hantasuraniyajna
उद्गीतान्नात्ययामेति
132 केह वाचम् ऊचुः
वाचौचुः
udgitena
त्वचं न उद्गायेति
त्वं न
तन्न
उद्गायेति
उद्गायति
तथेति तेभ्यो वागुद्गायत
तथेति तेभ्यो
वागुद्गायत
वागुद्गायत
यो वाचि भोगतं देवेभ्य
यो
वाचि
वाचि देवेभ्यः
देवेभ्यः
आगायत् यत् कल्याणं वदति
आगाय
आगाय
कल्याणं
यत्कल्याणं वदति
वदति
तदात्मने
तदात्मने
ते विदुः अनेन वै न उद्गात्र
ते विदुः अनेन वै न
अनेन वै
उद्गात
न उद्गात
अत्येषन्तीति
अत्येषन्तीति
अन्वेषन्तीति
तमभिद्रुत्य
तमभिधृत्य
तमभिद्रुत्य
आत्मना विध्यंसयः
पापमना विध्यंसयः
संशयः
स पाप्मा यदे वेदम् अप्रतिरूपं वदति
स पाप्मा यदे
वेदं
प्रतिरूपं वदति
वदति
स एव स पाप्मा
स एव स
eva
पाप्मा
sapatma.
133 अतः प्राणमूचुः
अतः
प्राणमुचुः
त्वं न उद्गायेति
त्वं न उद्गायति
तथेति तेभ्य प्राणा
तथेति
प्राणा
Prana.
उद्गायत यः प्राणो
उद्गायति प्राणो
सॉरी उद्गायत यः प्राणे भोगः
उद्गायत प्राणे
प्राणेभ्यः
तं देवेभ्य आगाय
तं
तं देवेभ्यः
देवेभ्यः
गागायत
आगाय
यत् कल्याणं जिग्रति तदात्मने
यत् कल्याणं जिघ्रति तदात्मने
जिघ्रति तदात्मने
ते विदु अनेन वैन उद्गात्रा
ते विदुः अनेन वैन
अनेन
उद्गात्र
वै उद्गात
अत्येषस्यन्तीति
अत्येष्यन्ति
अत्येष्यन्ति
तमभिद्रुत्य
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 पाप्मना विध्यंस यः स पाप्मा
पाप्मना
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 विद्यन्स
विद्यन्सय
यः
पाप्मा
पाप्मा
यदेवेदम् अप्रतिरूपं जिग्रति
यदेवेदम्
यदेवेदम् जिघ्रति
अप्रतिरूपं विद्धि
स एव स पाप्मा
स
स
एव स पाप्मा
एव स पाप्मा
द फोर्थ मंत्र अतः चक्षुरुचुः
अथः
अतः
चक्षुरुचुः
चक्षुरुचुः
त्वं न उद्गायेति तथेति
त्वं
त्वं
न उद्गायति
उद्गायेति
तथेति
तथेति
तेभ्यश्चक्षुरुद्गायत
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 चक्षुषि भोगः
यश्चक्षुषि
यश्चक्षुषि
भोगः
भोगः
तं देवेभ्य आगायत्
तं देवेभ्य आगायत
आगायत
यत्कल्याणं पश्यति तदात्मने
यत् कल्याणं पश्यति
पश्यति
तदात्मने
तदात्मने
ते विदुः अनेन वैन उद्गात्रा
ते विदुः अनेन वैन
तेन
उद्गात
उद्गात्र
अत्येष्यन्तीति
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 तम् अभिद्रुत्य
तमभि
अभिद्रुत्य
पाप्मना विध्यंस यः स पाप्मा
पाप्मना
पाप्मना विद्यन्सय पाप्मा
विध्यन्स्य स पाप्मा
यदेवेदम् अप्रतिरूपं पश्यति
यदेदम्
यदेवेदम्
अप्रतिरूपं
यदेवेदमप्रतिरूपं
पश्यति
पश्यति
स एव स पाप्मा
स एव स
एव स
पाप्मा
पाप्मा
द फिफ्थ मंत्र अतः श्रोत्रमूचुः
अतः
अतः श्रोत्रमूचुः
त्वं न उद्गायेति तथेति
त्वं
न
न
उद्गायेति
उद्गायेति
तेभ्यः श्रोत्रमुद्गायतः
तेभ्यः
तेभ्यः श्रोत्रमुद्गायतः
यः श्रोत्रे भोगः
यश्रोत्रे
यश्रोत्रे
भोगः
भोगः
तं देवेभ्य आगायत्
तं देवेभ्य आगायत
आगायत
यत्कल्याणं शृणोति तदात्मने
यत्
यत्
कल्याणं
कल्याणं
शृणोति
शृणोति
तदात्मने
तदात्मने
ते विदुः अनेन वैन उद्गात्रा
ते विदुः अनेन वैन
येन वैन
उद्गात्र
उद्गाता
अत्येषस्यन्तीति
अत्येष्यन्तीति
अत्येष्यन्तीति
तमभिद्रुत्य
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 पाप्मानवदयन् स यः स पाप्मा
पापात्मानाविध्यंसय स
स
पाप्मा
पाप्मा स पाप्मा
यदेवेदम् अप्रतिरूपं शृणोति
यदेवेदम्
यदेवेदम् शृणोति
अप्रतिरूपं शृणोति
स एव स पाप्मा
स एव स
स
पाप्मा
पाप्मा
द सिक्स्थ मंत्र अतः मन ऊचुः
अतः
अतः मन ऊचुः
त्वं न उद्गायेति तथेति
त्वं
त्वं न
न
उद्गायति
उद्गायति
तथेति
तथेति
तेभ्यो मन उद्गायत यो मनसि भोगः
तेभ्यो
तेभ्यो मन उद्गायत यो मनसि भोगः
तं देवेभ्य आगायत्
तं
तं देवेभ्य आगायत
आगायत
यत् कल्याणं संकल्पयति तदात्मने
यत्
यत् कल्याणं
कल्याणं
सङ्कल्पं क्रियते तदात्मने
आत्मने
ते विदुः अनेन वैन उद्गात्रा
ते
ते
विदुः
विदुः अनेन
अनेन
वैन
वैन
उद्गातः
उद्गाता
अत्येषस्यन्तीति
अत्येष्यन्तीति
येष्यन्तीति
तम् अभिद्रुत्य पाप्मान् वेदयन्
तमभिद्य पाप्मानविद्यम्
विद्यम्
Swayah sa papma
सयः स पाप्मा
yadevedam apratirupam sankalpayati
वेदं
यदेवेदमप्रीतं
तद्विभूतं
तद्विभूतं
संकल्पयति
सङ्कल्पयति
sa eva sa papma
स एव स
स
पाप्मा
पाप्मा
evam ukhalveta devataः
एवं
उखल
वेता देवताः
देवताः
पाप्मभिरूपास्वजन् एवमनाः
पाप्मभिरुपा
पाप्मभिरूपास्वजन्
सृजन्
एवमनाः
एवमेनाः
पाप्मना विद्यन्
पाप्मना
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 विद्यन्
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 सेवेंथ मंत्र अत हेममासन्यम्
अथ
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 हेममासन्यम्
हेममासन्यम्
प्राणमूचुः
प्राणमुचुः
प्राणमूचुः
त्वं न उद्गायेति तथेति
त्वं न
न
उद्गायति
उद्गायेति
उत्कायेति
तथेति
तथेति
तेभ्य एष प्राण उद्गायत्
तेभ्य
तेभ्य
एष
एष
प्राण
प्राण
उद्गायत
उद्गत
ते विदुः अनेन वै न उद्गात्रा
ते
ते
विदुः अनेन वै
विदुः
न
अनेन वै
उद्गात्रा
वेन
नोत्तरा
उत्गात्रा
अत्येष्यन्तीति
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 तम् अभिधृत्य
तम्
अभिधृत्य
अभिधृत्य
पाप्मना विवत्सन्
पापमान
पाप्मना
विद्यन् स
विद्यन्
यशः शर्मन्
पाप्मना विव्यत्सन्
पाप्मना विद्यन्
स यथाश्मानमृत्वा
स
स
यथाश्म
यथा
यथा स्मानमुत्वा
कृत्वा
लोष्ठे विद्वंसेत
लोष्टो
लोष्टोविध्वंसेत
विध्वंसेत
एवं हैव
एवं
एवं
हैव
हैव
विद्वंसमाना
विध्वंसमाना
समाना
विश्वञ्चो विनेषुः
विश्वञ्चो
विश्वं चो
विनेषु
विनेषु
ततो देवा अभवन्
ततो
ततो देवा
देवा
अभवन्
अभवन्
परासुरा भव्यत्यात्मना
परासुरा भवद्भव्यात्मना
भवत्यात्मना
परास्य दिश्वन्
पराशास्य
पराशद्विष्वन्
दश्मन्
भ्रातव्यो भवति
भ्रातव्यो भवति
द्रव्यो भवति
य एवं वेद
य एवं वेद
Ash. So that's a marathon, okay? Now, I will give you the gist of the story. If you need
just
any...
one
Yeah,
just
yeah,
one
yeah,
in the seventh mantra
yeah.
tam abhidrutya papmana vidyan, that is the word, no?
Where are we?
Third line.
Tamabhidrutya papmana vyatsan.
In this, the text printed is papmana vidyan.
Papmana
Then it follows by sa yathashman mrutva.
One second. Let me see if I made a mistake in that. Yes, that is one interpretation. This one I've taken from a different book, but you can also take Papmana Vidyan, which is consistent with what is earlier.
Okay. Thank you.
So, right. So, the gist of the story is if you want any particular word translation, you just put in the group afterwards, then I will explain. But I'm giving you the basic story. So, there were two sets of people, we all know, Devas or Asuras, and they belong to Prajapati, Hiranyagarbha. So, Shankara in his commentary says that the Devas and Asuras in this story represent the various organs. Okay, now this is not to be taken as a general interpretation, right? Shastras talk about Devas and Asuras living in separate lokas and they are all jivas, but they are different from Bhruloka. So this particular interpretation of Shankara saying that in this story the Devas and Asuras should be taken as organs is restricted to this particular story, right? So this is Bhutarthavada, which is why all the discussion took place. So let's go back to the story. These organs belong to Prajapati, Hiranyagarbha. And Shankara in his commentary adds for clarity that these organs belong not to the present day, the ruling Hiranyagarbha, but the Jiva who later became the Hiranyagarbha. So it is the pre-avatar, the pre-Hiranyagarbha avatar, the Jiva who later became Hiranyagarbha because of his punya. So these organs belong to that Jiva. Then he says this, how do you distinguish between an organ which is Asura and an organ which is Deva? So he says that any organ can be Asura. And in fact, the same organ can be both, can be Asura and Deva also. The organs get the names Deva Asura according to their nature. And Shankara explains, Shastriya Jnana Karma Sankaravan. Organs which have which behave or have got virtues, samskara, which are results of Shastriya Jnanam. Means because of the scriptural statements, they have behaved in a particular manner and therefore they have got particular virtues. They are called devas. So organs which have virtues developed from Shastra Jnanam, they are called devas. And what are asuras? He says swabhavika jnana karma samskaravan. When the same organ is swabhavika, is natural state, not refined through shastra. Therefore, it's an unrefined instrument and it acts impulsively. It does whatever it wants to do. They are called asuraha. Right. So, in the previous birth, as a Manushya Jiva, this Jiva who would become the future Hiranyagarbha, that future being today. Okay. So today's Hiranyagarbha had a previous birth as a Jiva, as a Manushya. In that birth, he had organs which were both Deva and Asura, had qualities of both. Now, if a particular organ has both the gunas of Deva and Asura, it is, remember, it is a predominant guna which decides whether the organ is Asura or Deva. And between Devas and Asuras, remember that Devas are always in minority. And Asuras are also always in majority. What is the Puranic example of this? That Devas are in minority.
Kaurava and Pandavas.
Kauravas and Pandavas. Okay, five Pandavas and 100 Kauravas. Now, the Devas wanted to defeat the Asuras. And therefore, what did they do? This is the story, right? So, the Deva within, remember each organ had Deva and Asura both, right? So, the Deva within the organ gave instructions to the organ to do Upasana. What was the logic? If one does Upasana, good samskaras become stronger and bad samskaras become weaker. Good samskara is Deva, bad samskara is weak, is Asura. Therefore, by doing Upasana to Devas, the Deva part of the organ becomes stronger. Okay, what Upasana did they do? So, if you look at the mantra, Udgita Karma. So, Udgita means what?
Omkara.
Omkara. Where did we see this?
Dukhe.
Sorry? Chandogya. Right. Shouldn't forget Chandogya. So, the very first sections were devoted to Udgita Upasana. So, Udgita Karmaya means Upasana. So, Samaganam Udgita Upasanam. That is the name. Right? Udgita is named, given to Omkara only when it occurs in the Samaveda. So, Udgita did. They are supposed to do Udgita Upasana. And what are the organs? So, each of these mantras, they talk about one particular organ. The second mantra is Vak, Vak Indriyam. Third mantra is Pranaha. Then Grihapana, organ of smell. The fourth mantra is Chakshuhu, The fifth mantra is Shrotram. The sixth mantra is Manaha. If you look at them, one is Karmendriyam, three are Jnanendriyams, and there is a Manaha, Antakaranaha, which is, as far as the Indriyams are concerned, the Manaha, the mind is available to all the Indriyams, Karmendriyams as well as Jnanendriyams. So Manaha is the Antakaranaha, also can be called Samashti Indriyam, because available to all these others. Right? So each of these organs, they started doing the Udgita Upasana. So when the Devas, under the instructions of the Devas, the organs started doing Udgita Upasana, the organs, the Deva part of the organ started getting stronger. And therefore the Asuras panicked. So the Asuras did not want to allow the organs to do the Upasana. Remember again that Deva Asura are both present in one organ. Therefore, when one organ is doing Upasana, the Asura part can say don't do. So Asuras obstructed them from doing the Upasana. How the word used in the mantra is Papmana Vidyan. By creating evil thoughts. So by creating evil thoughts, they mounted an attack on the organs. Which means what? When the Asuras attacked the organs, it means that evil thoughts were flowing over there. And because of evil thoughts, evil deeds and evil actions were there present in the organs. And that is why Upanishad says that every organ is a mixture of the good and evil. The Devas in the organs are inclined to noble actions. The Asuras in the organs are inclined to evil actions and evil thoughts. That is why, Pancha Karmendriyas are capable of doing both actions, evil and good. The Vak Indriya, for example, can do good actions like Gita Parayanam. But when you're on the street, that same Vak Indriya can start abusing the other people on the road, right? Because traffic is there. So both organs are involved in good deeds and also in bad deeds. Similar is the case with the Jnanendriyams also. So what happened? Under the instructions of Devas, the organs tried to meditate. But the Asuras kept on disturbing with evil thoughts. And therefore, ultimately, there was no concentration. Right? So the Upasana failed. The organs failed to do the Upasana. And therefore, they went to Mukhya Prana. Right? They went to the Mukhya Prana, the original Prana, the very life principle of the Jivas. And the Devas said that the other organs have failed. So you, Prana, you do Udgita Karma, Udgita Upasana. And therefore, Prana performed Udgita Upasana. When Prana was performing Udgita Upasana, again the Asuras panicked and they came and attacked the Prana. But there was a difference. Asuras did not succeed in overpowering the Pranas, and the Prana Shakti therefore destroyed all the Asuras. An example is given. It is like throwing a lump of clay onto a glass piece. If I throw a lump of clay onto the glass breaks. Nothing happens to the lump of clay. But if I throw the same lump of clay, ball of clay, at a rock, a big rock, nothing happens to the rock. But the ball itself gets broken on hitting the rock. So here in the example, the Asuras are the clay balls and the Prana is the rock. Therefore, Asuras and evil thoughts did not affect Prana. What is the conclusion? Pranaha is Shuddha. Life principle, the consciousness principle, the life principle, the Prana itself, which gives you life, not consciousness. Prana, Mukhya Prana, is pure in everybody. The Prana is neither good nor bad. The Prana just makes you alive. And therefore, when somebody is a criminal, when we say that somebody is a criminal or a bad person, you should know that the criminality or the badness, it belongs not to the Prana, but it belongs to the Karmendriya or the Jnanendriya. The goodness or badness of a person, it depends upon Jnanendriyas, Karmendriyas, or Antakaranam. But prana by itself is sacred. Nothing happens to prana. It is free from all evils. Therefore, if you do upasana on prana, you will be free from all evils. This is the story. Therefore, the first glory is what? Vishuddha. The first glory of prana is Vishuddhatvam, purity. This is the gist of the mantras from 1 to 7. So in the next class, we will do the rest of the mantras. Any questions so far?
Not a, I mean, it's not a Vedantic question, but the construction of the words and the sentences is different from all the other Upanishads we have done.
Yes, yes. It's much more what you call different type of Sanskrit. So actually, if you want to really break it up, you can break it up. You do all the sandhi breakups and then rearrange the order, and then it'll be easier to understand. Right now, it's all different. This is what they say about Sanskrit, right? That classical Sanskrit is always is as if it was written to confuse you. So that way,
Yeah, thank you.
the construction is different. Okay, so with this,
So if prana is the strongest or the rock in this example, so what about the rest of the indriyas? Everything is like a glass, the jnanendriyas or the
all the indriyas as well as the mind are comparatively weaker when it comes to the life principle, the prana itself. Now, what is being said is that whenever you say something is good or bad about a person, it doesn't belong to prana. It's like, the simple example we always use. Electricity can be used to power let us say, life-saving machine, right? It can also be used to power an electric chair which kills people. The design of the machine decides whether the effect is good or bad. The electricity just enables the machine to work. The prana just enables the karmendriyas, jnanendriyas and antakaranam to work. Whether it works for the good or for the bad is dependent upon the character of the antakaranam, the jnanendriyas and the pranendriyas, swabhavaha. It cannot be attributed to prana.
True. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so with this, we'll stop for today. Om Purnamadav
Om
Purnamidam
Purnamidam
Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vasishyate
Vashishyate.
Om
Om
Shanti Shanti
Shanti
Shanti. Thank you for your patience.
Om
Om Om.
Namah
Thank you.
Shivaya.
Thank you.
Jai